Pedro Bay ports in California, the largest gateway for trade in North America, moving over $500 billion in goods each year. Nearly 1 out of every 3 containerized imports to the United States arrives through these docks. But right now, as you're watching this video, 70,000 truck operators who keep this entire system running face a perfect storm of overlapping laws that could bring America's supply chain to its knees. The first enforcement action just landed, $868,128 in fines. Drivers scrambling to relocate or quit. When the arteries of American commerce start to clog, who really pays the price? And what happens when your grocery bill starts climbing because trucks can't move? The numbers are staggering. The Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach together form the San Pedro Bay Port Complex, the beating heart of American imports. In 2024, Los Angeles alone moved 10.3 million 20-foot equivalent container units, while Long Beach handled 9.6 million. Combined, they processed nearly 20 million containers annually, supporting 3 million jobs across warehousing, retail, and manufacturing nationwide. These aren't just statistics on paper. This is the food on your table, the clothes in your closet, the electronics powering your life. But in 2026, 3 major California laws are colliding at exactly the same moment, creating a regulatory tsunami that's forcing independent truck operators to make impossible choices. Assembly Bill 5, the law that reclassifies independent contractors as employees. Assembly Bill 692, banning training repayment contracts. And the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, mandating a rapid shift to zero-emission vehicles. Each law targets a different piece of the puzzle. Together, they affect more than 70,000 independent truck operators who built their entire livelihoods on flexibility and independence. Labor advocates call these reforms overdue. They point to decades of wage theft and worker misclassification. Industry leaders warn that compliance costs will devastate the supply chain. Governor Gavin Newsom, caught between labor unions and business coalitions, defends California's approach as necessary for equity and sustainability. But here's what nobody's talking about: the timing. All 3 laws roll out simultaneously, hitting an industry that moves slowly, operates on thin margins, and can't pivot overnight like a tech startup. Any shock to the system doesn't stay in California. It ripples across every state, every city, every household in America. Then came October 30th, 2025, a date that sent shockwaves through every freight corridor in California. The California Labor Commissioner issued citations totaling $868,128 against 3 companies: Mega Nice Trucking, Last Mile, and Costco. The charge? Misclassifying 58 delivery drivers in San Diego. These drivers were treated as independent contractors, paid flat daily rates with no overtime, no benefits, no worker protections, no safety net. If work disappeared, the investigation started in July 2024 after 2 former Mega Nice Trucking employees filed complaints alleging wage theft. What investigators found painted a stark picture. Employee drivers in California average about $35,000 per year. Their contractor counterparts? Just $28,783. That's a wage gap of over $6,000 annually for the same work. For families living paycheck to paycheck, that gap means choosing between medical care and rent, between groceries and car repairs. But the fine wasn't just about past violations. It forced everyone in the industry to confront a brutal new reality. For drivers like Dean Martinez, who spent years hauling freight on his own schedule, making his own choices, controlling his own destiny, the citation wasn't just a headline in the news. It meant choosing between uprooting his entire family or abandoning the independence that first drew him to trucking. Landstar, one of the nation's largest carriers with operations spanning the continent, faced the same impossible math. They gave 365 California-based operators a stark ultimatum: relocate out of state, or obtain your own operating authority, an expensive and incredibly risky proposition that most small operators simply cannot afford. Think about that for a moment. 365 families, 365 small businesses built over years, sometimes decades. all told to pack up and leave California or face financial ruin. Others didn't even get a choice. California Cartage Company, a fixture in the drayage business for 25 years, moving containers from ships to warehouses, shut its doors. The reason? Compliance costs. Luis Garcia, a longtime driver who worked the same routes for years, described the atmosphere as tense and uncertain. Each enforcement action, each closure, relocation offer chipping away at the state's freight capacity. Drivers and families forced to weigh their options in a climate of mounting legal and financial pressure. Some left for Nevada, Arizona, Texas, taking their skills and experience with them. Others tried to pivot, scrambling for employee positions with lower pay and less flexibility. Many just quit the industry entirely, walking away from trucking careers spanning 10, 15, 20 years. But just as California's trucking workforce was absorbing this shock, federal scrutiny arrived like a second wave hitting an already battered coastline. In late 2025, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration launched a nationwide audit targeting commercial driver's licenses held by non-citizens. The California Department of Motor Vehicles flagged compliance issues involving 17,299 licenses. That's not a typo. 17,299 drivers, each one representing a person whose work authorization didn't match the expiration date on their commercial driver's license. The federal government delivered a warning: bring licensing into line with federal rules, or risk losing highway funding. $40 million immediately under review. For California's logistics sector, the timing could not have been worse. Immigrant drivers make up about 20% of California's trucking workforce. 20%, many playing vital roles in port drayage, the short-haul trips that move containers from ships to rail yards and distribution centers. The audit left thousands of experienced drivers uncertain about their livelihoods, unsure if they'd be able to legally operate on California roads. Next week, next month, next year, industry groups warned that removing so many experienced drivers would hammer freight flows at the worst possible moment, compounding disruptions already underway for new classification and training laws. A legal challenge quickly followed in December. Advocacy groups argued that California's cancellation procedures failed to provide due process for affected drivers. While federal officials pointed to safety and compliance, port operators and carriers braced for a labor shortfall that could cripple operations. The risk extended far beyond individual livelihoods. Every revoked license threatened the reliability of supply chains, moving goods from the docks to your local stores, to the shelves where you shop. Then on January 1, 2026, California's Assembly Bill 692 took effect, setting new boundaries on how trucking companies manage their workforce. The law prohibits employers from forcing drivers to repay training costs if they leave the job. These were called stay or pay clauses, contracts that essentially trapped workers through debt. For every violation, the penalty stands at a minimum of $5,000 per affected employee. Multiply that by dozens or hundreds of drivers, and you're looking at financial devastation for carriers. Industry recruiters who relied on these clauses to retain new hires now face the challenge of attracting and keeping drivers without any financial leverage. Carriers scrambling to design compliant training programs, weighing the cost of upfront investment against the risk of losing talent to competitors immediately after training ends. Meanwhile, the financial pressure mounts from yet another direction. The Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, enforced by the California Air Resources Board, accelerates the shift to zero-emission vehicles. Right now, only 2,820 charging ports exist statewide for medium and heavy-duty trucks. Just 2,820, yet state estimates call for 157,000 chargers by 2030 to support a full transition. Let's break down what this means. A zero-emission Class 8 truck, the big rigs you see on highways, costs between $400,000 and $600,000. Compare that to a diesel rig at $150,000 to $200,000, 2 to 3 times more expensive. Small fleet operators can apply for vouchers through the Hybrid and Zero-Emission Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project. Incentives reach up to $240,000 per truck. But even with these credits, the capital required remains daunting. As of October 2024, just 415 zero-emission trucks were registered at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. 415 trucks, out of tens of thousands operating in the region. The gap between policy ambition and infrastructure reality defines this moment. You can mandate zero-emission trucks, but if drivers have nowhere to charge them, if the vehicles cost 3 times as much, if the range can't handle long-haul routes, the mandate becomes meaningless. Or worse, it becomes a barrier that pushes operators out of business. Dr. Maya Patel, an energy economist who studies transportation transitions, points to this disconnect as a defining test for the industry's future. Can California bridge the gap between what they want and what's actually possible? Or will the gap swallow the very workers this policy claims to protect? Container traffic reached historic levels in 2024. Los Angeles moved 10.3 million TEUs. Long Beach handled 9.6 million, both among the highest annual totals ever recorded. These numbers reflected surging demand and the port's capacity to process vast cargo volumes, even as regulatory changes loomed on the horizon. But by May 2025, the picture shifted dramatically. Monthly throughput at the combined complex dropped to 716,619 TEUs, the lowest point in 2 years. Port executives attributed the volatility to shifting trade policies and businesses racing to move goods ahead of new tariffs. Despite the dip, the system continued functioning, proving both the resilience and the vulnerability of California's freight infrastructure to outside shocks. In November 2025, volume decreased 12%, with about 782,000 TEUs processed. The downward trend was unmistakable. The National Retail Federation's chief economist projects a 10% to 17% decline in California port volumes for the first quarter of 2026. The reasons? Regulatory changes and shifting trade patterns creating a perfect storm. Reports of canceled orders and rising inventory costs fuel warnings about possible supply chain bottlenecks that could leave store shelves empty and prices climbing. At a press conference in Sacramento, Governor Gavin Newsom addressed mounting concerns head-on. "We are on the brink of a logistics disruption that could affect every American household," he said. "Coordinated action between state agencies, industry, and labor is not optional. It's essential." Newsom reaffirmed his administration's commitment to a 2035 vision of zero-emission freight and fair labor standards. But he acknowledged that the pathway forward demands flexibility and rapid response as conditions evolve. The question everyone's asking, is flexibility coming fast enough? Can the state adjust before the damage becomes permanent? Right now, at this very moment, California's trucking crossroads shapes not just paychecks for drivers, but the stability of America's entire supply chain. 3 laws colliding, 70,000 operators caught in the middle, enforcement actions landing with 6-figure fines, federal audits threatening to revoke thousands more licenses, charging infrastructure that doesn't exist, trucks that cost 3 times more, port volumes dropping month after month. As these new laws collide with economic realities, the nation watches. Because what happens on California's highways today will echo through every store shelf tomorrow. Your grocery prices, your Amazon delivery times, your ability to find products in stock. All of it depends on trucks moving goods from ports to warehouses to stores. And right now, that system is fragmenting in real time. What future do we choose to deliver? Do we find a way to protect workers while keeping goods moving? Or do we watch as regulations, no matter how well-intentioned, strangle the supply chain that feeds America? The answer is being written right now on California's highways, at its ports, in the choices of 70,000 truck operators facing impossible decisions. This isn't just California's problem, it's your problem. Because when California's supply chain collapses, America's shelves go empty.